clear? So, is it seen? Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, pH is defined. Why this P is written as small letter and H as capital letter? That is another question in the Viva they may ask you. Any idea?
H is symbol
Okay.
of hydrogen.
Huh?
H is symbol of hydrogen.
H is symbol of hydrogen, so it is written in capital. What about P? P stands for power of hydrogen. Okay, so that doesn't require a capital. So it is the power of hydrogen is the expansion for that acronym PH. So P is always should be written only as a small letter. You should not put a capital for P. Please remember that whenever you write PH, then the P should always be a small letter and H only should be a capital letter. So it is defined as the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. Okay, so this is the definition. Most enzyme systems function within a normal pH changes, and they can also affect the electrolyte values. Why pH is important? These are the reasons. One main reason is enzyme systems function normally only within the normal pH range, and they will affect the electrolyte values if they go astray. Can affect cell membrane and protein and hormone function, and pH is measured using the pH electrodes in the blood gas machine. So sometimes pH electrode itself can be a short note question in your theory exam paper. So it is measured using a electrode called the pH electrode, which has got two electrodes. One is the measuring electrode, and another is always a reference electrode. This is the picture of that. So this one contains the silver chloride solution with a KCl solution. That is the buffering solution with the silver chloride. Another is a mercury chloride with again potassium chloride as a electrolyte solution, buffer solution. So when you feed a blood sample into that, there is a voltage created between the measuring electrode and the reference electrode based on the hydrogen ion concentration. Okay? So the reference electrode and glass electrodes are there, and that will be showing a difference in the voltage in the ammeter. Based on that, it will give you the value of the pH. It is maintained within a closed normal range by buffer's respiratory system and renal system. So this is the normal value. These are the three stages or three steps by which they come into action. So immediate action is by the buffer system. Slightly delayed but equally faster is respiratory, and slow but permanent solution is by the renal system. The role of buffer system, they act within seconds, and they combine with acid or base to prevent sudden excessive changes, but they do not eliminate hydrogen from the body. They just change the nature of that by combining themselves with that excess acid or base, but they don't remove them from the body. But your respiration and your renal systems, they help to eliminate hydrogen or bicarb from their system from the body by their effect on excretion. So the three main buffer systems are the bicarbonate buffer, phosphate buffer, and protein buffer, and they are present in ECF as well as ICF. That is, extracellular fluid also has this buffer, and intracellular fluid also has this buffer. And among the protein buffers, you have the hemoglobin, the amino acid buffer, which is the histidine buffer, which you have to mention, which you have not done. I will tell you in detail, and the plasma protein buffer. Now coming to the first system of bicarbonate buffer, what is this is the most important buffer within our body. It is a ratio maintained between sodium bicarbonate and carbonic acid. So the bicarbonate buffer is the most important extracellular buffer. It is present in the extracellular fluid and it consists of two components, sodium bicarbonate and carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is a weak acid. It cannot stay in the acid form for a long time. So it immediately dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. So under normal circumstances, what will happen? There is much more bicarbonate present than carbonic acid. So the ratio is almost about 20:1. This is to meet the constant hydrogen ion load that will be produced by the body. So the bicarbonate is always on the higher side compared to the carbonic acid. And carbonic acid dissociates into these two components, hydrogen and bicarbonate. So this is the concentration that may be present. And this is regulated by the base constituent. Bicarbonate is regulated by the kidney and the carbonic acid is regulated by the respiratory regulation. So these are the two other systems which also partially support the buffering system of bicarbonate. Now the next buffering system is the phosphate buffer system, where you have normally what is called disodium hydrogen phosphate is present. This will also take up the hydrogen ion which is formed in the body and convert itself into sodium dihydrogen phosphate. So one hydrogen has gone here and instead for that sodium is separated. So this positive hydrogen ion combines with this hydrogen ion here and one positive sodium ion is released. So disodium hydrogen phosphate becomes sodium dihydrogen phosphate and sodium ion. And this is the buffer present in the blood. Important buffer in the blood. It is not an important present in the blood, but it is more in the renal tubular fluid. So this phosphate buffer mechanism acts mainly in the renal tubular fluid, even before the other mechanisms of renal system come into play. Now coming to the protein buffer, it contains plasma proteins albumin, which also act as a buffer, and they have both acid and amine groups or basic groups in them. And whenever the acid is needed, acid is excess in solution, it will combine with the ammonia and become NH3. Whereas in the basic solution, it will join with the carboxylic acid and that will take up the hydrogen. So it will give up the hydrogen if there is a alkylatic nature. So the imidazole ring of the histidine group is the most important in the buffer in the proteins. So what is this histidine? Histidine is an essential amino acid obtained through dietary sources. And it is readily ionizes within the body's physiological pH, making histidine participate in enzyme catalyzed form. So it can tackle both acid and base excess. Whenever there is an acid, it can accept the acid and get protonated. Whenever there is a low acid, it can give up the acid and get control that situation. So the imidazole ring, which is nothing but a ring with a 5 positions. Your benzene ring, all of you will be remembering, it has a 6-position carbon ring. Whereas imidazole is a 5-position carbon ring, which has 2 nitrogens attached in the first and third position, okay, to which that hydrogen ion can get combined. So this is the neutral imidazole. When one wants to become a cation, it gives up, takes up one hydrogen and becomes a cation. And when it becomes deprotonated, it gives up the, see, there is no hydrogen in this. So the same imidazole can remain as a neutral, or it can become a cation or an anion depending upon the acid or base nature in that. So it can act as both an acid and base due to its unique imidazole side chain, which allows it to accept or donate a proton at different hydrogen levels. So this is the most important component of the protein buffering system. So instead of simply saying that proteins act as a buffer, this is very important for all of us to understand the concept of how these proteins with the help of histidine, which is an essential amino acid, help us to tackle the acidic or the basic state in our body. So this is the structure of imidazole, and as I said, there are 5 positions: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the nitrogen is usually attached to the first and third position. And the other things are carbon. And we have so many drugs which are having an imidazole ring. Can you tell me any one of those drugs? Both anesthetic and non-anesthetic drugs have got imidazole ring. Which makes them midazolam. Okay. Then induction agent, etomidate. Etomidate is the imidazole compound. Then you have your regular so you are called antifungal agent, iconazole, clometrazole, fluconazole, all these all imidazole derivative, and this metronidazole and tinidazole. You can see this last word, zole, present in imidazole is present in these drugs also. Okay? So metronidazole and tinidazole, antiparasitic agents, azathioprine and dacarbazine. Now, what is azathioprine? An immunosuppressant agent given after mainly transplant to prevent rejection. And dacarbazine is an anti-chemotherapeutic agent, anti-cancerous drug. Your omeprazole, pantoprazole, similitine, they are also imidazole derivatives. Your losartan, which is an antihypertensive, ACE inhibitor, that is also imidazole. Phenytoin is an imidazole derivative. Etomidate and midazolam are also imidazole derivatives. Now coming to the hemoglobin buffer mechanism, these are the 2 things which we have to remember. The hemoglobin present in the RBC plays an important role in the respiratory regulation, and they transport metabolically produced carbon dioxide from the lung. And this picture, if you remember, it is easy at the tissue level. After metabolism, carbon dioxide is produced. So that is being taken up by the RBC. Carbon dioxide combines with water to form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid, being a weak acid, immediately dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate. This hydrogen joins with the hemoglobin. It becomes hydrogen hemoglobin. And then at the lung level, this reverse happens. The hydrogen hemoglobin combines with oxygen to become oxygenated. Here it becomes deoxygenated, it becomes oxygenated blood. So hydrogen is released. This will combine with bicarbonate and form carbonic acid. This will dissociate into carbon dioxide and water, and that will be eliminated via the lungs. So this is called the Haldane-Bohr effect. Bohr effect at the tissue level, Haldane effect at the lung level. So that is how you it helps in the elimination of the hydrogen ion. And respiration forms the, so in buffering system, bicarbonate buffer, phosphate buffer acting at the tubular level, and the protein which with the help of histidine. These are the 3 things you have to remember, and the histidine is part of the hemoglobin also. And the respiratory mechanism is the second line of defense. It achieves regulation by concentration of carbonic acid in the blood and other body fluids. And the respiratory center regulates the removal or retention of carbon dioxide, and thereby the carbonic acid from the extracellular fluid from the lungs. So thus lungs function maintaining the component of the carbonic acid, which is the bicarbonate. So this is the chain of events. Cell produces carbon dioxide by their metabolism. Carbon dioxide combines with water to form carbonic acid that dissociates into hydrogen and bicarbonate, and it stimulates respiratory center. If there is acidosis, the excess hydrogen ions stimulate the center in the medulla because they can diffuse through the CSF. At the rate and depth of breathing increases, CO2 eliminated in the lungs, pH rises towards normal. So this is the sequence of events that will happen if there is a accumulation of acid in the blood and there is a increasing hydrogen ion concentration. Now another mechanism that happens in the RBC is the chloride shift or hamburger phenomena, where to transport the hydrogen ion, the bicarbonate that is produced comes out temporarily and the chloride gets inside. So the bicarbonate comes to the extracellular fluid to neutralize the pH, whatever it happens. And then the chloride, which is an anion, the negative charge, blows into the RBC and it will come out at the lung level to come back to the normal. The renal mechanism mainly happens at the proximal tubule, plays an important role in helping the kidneys to maintain pH homeostasis. And it provides to permanent solution to the acid base, even though it comes late, like your man's later வந்தாலும் latest-ஆ வருவேன். So like that, even if it comes later, it comes as with a permanent solution for the trouble of pH alteration. So in this contrast, the temporary buffering system and the short-term respiratory mechanism is there. The kidneys regulate the blood pH by maintaining alkali reserve. That is, they try to retain bicarbonate as much as possible. So the renal mechanisms, excretion of hydrogen ions, reabsorption of bicarbonate, excretion of other unmeasured titratable acids, and excretion of ammonium ion. These are the four things that you have to write in the renal mechanism for acid-base balance. And these methods, how bicarbonate is reabsorbed. So here you have this sodium bicarbonate which is filtered into the lumen by the after the glomerular filtration happens, and sodium is taken up and bicarb combines with the hydrogen ion and then forms carbonic acid, and that is broken down by the carbonic anhydrase to carbon dioxide and water. Why it has to be broken down into carbon dioxide? Because carbon dioxide only can go through the bilipid layers. So, and that will come into the tubular cell inside, where again it will combine with water, form carbonic acid, and then break down into bicarbonate and nitrogen. Hydrogen will be excreted out into the lumen. Bicarbonate will be taken back. Okay? So this is how the first mechanism happens. In the second mechanism, sodium is directly reabsorbed by the gradient. So here once it is filtered, lot of sodium is there. So by the concentration gradient, it travels back into the plasma. Similarly, what happens? The hydrogen ion which is there, the carbon dioxide and water which forms here, that also takes back the bicarbonate into the plasma, pushing the hydrogen ion into the tubular lumen. So here what happens? Sodium and bicarbonate are taken back together. So you require a different pump or a protein pump to take back the sodium and bicarbonate. Here you require a different pump to take the sodium back into the plasma and excrete the hydrogen into the urine. So what is this pump called and what is this pump which takes both together called? Any idea? That you take sodium back into the plasma and excrete the hydrogen ion, you require a different type of protein which is called a different pump. Whereas here you take the sodium as well as bicarbonate back together, this is called a different pump. Any name for that protein pump that is present in the kidney? Here what happens? Hydrogen is exchanged for sodium. Okay, so this is called sodium hydrogen exchanger pump. Whereas here sodium and bicarbonate are taken together into the plasma, so they are called sodium bicarbonate co-transporter. Both of them are transported together. So the pump that is used here is called the co-transporter pump, whereas the pump that is used here is called the exchanger pump, which are all nothing but proteins. So these are the pumps that I have been telling you. So here you have the pump which helps in the exchange of sodium. See, from the luminal fluid, sodium is taken back, hydrogen is pushed into that. So this is an exchange offer that is going on between the sodium and hydrogen. Okay, so this is called sodium hydrogen exchanger class 3 pump or the family of 3 pump. That is a protein. And here this is a both the sodium and bicarb are taken into the bloodstream of the basolateral membrane. So this is called sodium bicarb co-transporter enzyme 1. So these are the two pumps that are there. And this is the polyvinyl tyrosine kinase 2 enzyme. And in the carbonic anhydrase itself, you have several varieties. So what is converting the carbonic acid into hydrogen and bicarbonate at the cellular level is called carbonic anhydrase 2. Whereas the one which is converting the carbonic acid from carbon dioxide in water at the luminal level is called carbonic anhydrase 4. Just like you have several families of phosphodiesterase enzymes, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that you have in carbonic anhydrase also, you have several types which act at various tissue levels. Okay. So these are all some of the highlight points that you have to remember from the routine reading of your subject. And then the urine pH is always lower than your blood pH. It is around 6. Normally urine is acidic because most of the hydrogen ions are eliminated in the urine to maintain your body at a plasma normal pH of 7.4. So hydrogen ions is generated in the body in normal circumstances are eliminated by acidified urine. So the pH of urine is normally acidic, while that of blood is alkaline. So urine pH, however, is variable. It may range from 4.5 to 9.5 depending upon the concentration of hydrogen ions. And excretion of ammonia is the most important mechanism for acid excretion. So ammonia is produced in the kidneys from glutamate, which also produces bicarbonate. So in the proximal tubule, ammonia binds with hydrogen in the lumen and becomes ammonium. So NH3 becomes NH4. So ammonium is then concentrated in the reabsorbed back from the tubular lumen into the medulla. And this is the uh, what is that? Countercurrent exchange, and this is the concentrating mechanism. It works on the increasing the inner medullary concentration gradient to absorb more water from the terminal collecting ducts, and the concentration of ammonium then secreted into the collecting duct, and the metabolism of glutamine can increase tenfold in response to metabolic acidosis. And this is the phosphate buffer which I told you, which acts tubular level. So what happens is you have disodium hydrogen phosphate, which divides into sodium and sodium monohydrogen phosphate, which combines with the hydrogen to become sodium dihydrogen phosphate and excreted in the urine. So phosphate buffer is mainly acting at the renal tubular level and helping the retention of sodium as well as bicarbonate. And this is glutamine, which is converted into glutamic acid by enzyme glutaminase, which forms the ammonia. And this ammonia gets excreted into the tubular lumen, where it joins with the hydrogen ion to become ammonium. So ammonium is trapped and excreted, and sodium is reabsorbed, and to some extent bicarbonate also was recovered. So these pictures you have to remember to understand and write about the mechanisms of maintenance of pH. Then why pH is not neutral number and just slightly alkaline? That is the question that I asked you in the beginning. It's an ideal for many biological processes, the most important being blood oxygenation. And also many intermediates of biological reactions with the body become ionized at neutral pH, which makes the utilization of these intermediates more difficult. And lastly, the hydrogen ion production is always on the excess, which requires a slightly alkaline pH to manage that condition. Now, have you heard of this Gamblegram? What is Gamblegram? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So the Gamblegram is nothing but a bar picture which most of you would have seen in the books. It consists of two bars which represent the sum of the changes of individual negatively charged and positively charged. Just by looking at the Gamblegram picture, you can say what is the acid-base nature, whether it is acidosis or alkalosis, and if it is acidosis, it is normal anion gap acidosis or high anion gap acidosis. And the body tries to maintain electrolyte neutrality, electron neutrality at all times. That is, the sum of positively charged cations should be equal to the sum of negatively charged anions. And this can be illustrated in Gamblegram, which shows the most common anions and cations. In the left column, we find a lot of cations, that is positively charged ions, sodium and potassium. And on the right side, you find the negatively charged chloride and bicarbonate being the main. And the right column reflects the most abundant anions, while primarily chloride and bicarbonate form the left column. And there are unmeasured non-carbonic acid products like phosphates, citrates, picorates, etc. And there are negatively charged particles like albumin, which control less than the unmeasured anion in the non-carbonic acid. So nowadays, the importance of earlier, it is unmeasured cation and unmeasured anions were given here in the Gamblegram. But later on, they wanted to include the specifically the unmeasured cations anion also, after they identified that it could be albumin or a protein or some other unmeasured quantity. So by including that, they modified this Gamblegram. It is called the positive bar represented exclusively the strong ion difference between the positive and negative charge. And negative bar comprised of bicarbonate, unmeasured ion, albumin, and other phosphate charges. So by looking at this picture, you can easily identify the nature, whether it is an acidosis or an alkalosis. And you can see always positive charges should be equal to negative charges in the body. So adjustments will take place accordingly. If you have excessive positive charge, it will compromise by increasing the negative charge or reducing the positive charge. So that is the importance of this Gamblegram. And the steward approach. Earlier, the Henderson-Hasselbalch approach to pH said, if you know the carbon dioxide and bicarbonate, you can easily say the acid-base balance is understood. For example, carbon dioxide usually combines with water, becomes carbonic acid, and that gives rise to the acid element. And bicarbonate that is present in the body is a base. And so the balance is required only between these two. That is what the Henderson-Hasselbalch theory of pH maintenance said. But later, a person called Paul Stewart, he said, it is not these two alone which are important. He said, the first and foremost thing is you should find out the strong ion difference between the positively charged ions and the negatively charged ions. And then the total of weak acids that are present, especially like albumin and phosphate and carbon dioxide. So these three variables should be taken into account to identify and calculate the pH. So that is the difference between the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation and the Stewart equation, where three variables are included instead of the just two here in earlier Henderson-Hasselbalch. So this is how the Gamblegram also does that. And for every 10 millimeter increase in PaCO2, bicarb will rise by 4 millimoles to counteract that. That is the calculation. So if we go in for respiratory acidosis by inadequate ventilation, for every 10 millimeter increase in PaCO2, bicarb will increase by 4 millimeters per liter. So these are the basic things that we have to write. And of course, the variations you can just mention in your answer about the variations in pH that happen, like metabolic, you will have metabolic acidosis and alkalosis. Respiratory, you will have respiratory acidosis and alkalosis. And what conditions lead to that, what she mentioned is also can be included in the answer. I have not given all the details here. So the basic thing that you have to remember about pH is why pH is important, what are the mechanisms by which the normal value of 7.35 to 7.45 is maintained, and what are the theories that work behind that. So if you remember that, that is more than enough. And so that completes the answer on pH and its maintenance. Okay.